What's up everyone, my name's PlatinumHowler, coach of your Coquitlam Red Gyarados, and today I am bringing you my IBL Season 6 Semifinals match against Storm and his San Diego Sneasels. You can see his team on the right side of the screen, and his two Z users are Zygarde and Zebstrika. This is a big time grudge match. Storm beat us in week 11, the last week of the regular season, and as a result he knocked us out of a playoff bye position, and he got that playoff bye and forced us to play that quarterfinal game last week. And of course now we have to face again in the game that matters. So the first loss means nothing. This is for all the marbles. This is for a spot in the Season 6 championship game. I felt like he brought his near A team. I thought his team was really strong. It looked like he was gunning for the win just as much as I was. And I felt that my team was also very strong, so I didn't see much reason to change anything up, although we do have the Hydreigon this week over the Wigglytuff, and I will get into that when we get there. I will start explaining, we're pretty much going down the list by greatest amount of changes, I would say. So we have this Mega Gallade once again. It's a very, very similar set. It's the exact same move set, just 4 attacks. Coverage for his team is really, really strong. We have a little bit less speed. We just have just enough speed to outspeed Mimikyu, I believe, if he wants to bring that, if he wants to bring the Mimikyu. We had a little bit more speed on it the first time. I'm not exactly sure what that was supposed to be creeping, but we did take EVs out of speed and put them into physical bulk and a little tiny bit more into attack as well. So previously we had near max HP on the Gallade, but we don't have as much HP this time. But with the extra defense EVs, we are actually a little bit more physically bulky. The main hit that we won't be taking as well is a Shadow Ball from the Porygon 2. We did get hit with that in the previous game, and it did, well, since he was analytic, it did almost 50%. So it'll be doing a little bit more than 50% this time, most likely. But we do make up for that in the percentage of HP that we recovered from Drain Punch. Because we'll be doing more damage, a little bit more damage with our extra attack investment, and we'll still be getting a lot of HP back from Drain Punching the Porygon 2. So it kind of evens out in a way. Next up, we have the Tentacruel. The first time, this was an infestation set designed to trap the Klefki in and prevent it from just getting spikes up against my team and then switching out into offensive threats. This time, however, I do not have infestation. I was, unfortunately, because of some para-hacks, never able to get off the infestation that I wanted. But he now knows that I had infestation on my Tentacruel, so it's kind of a wasted move slot if, one, he expects me to have it again every time I switch in my Tentacruel against his Klefki, or two, he doesn't even bring his Klefki to this game. So I felt like I wanted to abandon the infestation route and put Toxic on there instead. The first time I had Toxic on my Zeraora, which was meant to potentially catch the Porygon 2, but this time I have it on the Tentacruel. And I also had Icy Wind instead of Ice Beam. That was for a couple of reasons. One is so the Zygarde could not Dragon Dance in front of me without, so I would be allowing him to boost his speed. But I'm not as much afraid of a Dragon Dance Zygarde this time because my Hydreigon is Choice Scarf, so I will outspeed his Zygarde after a Dragon Dance. So I have Ice Beam this time for the extra power, and I'll be able to 2-hit KO pretty much all variants of Zygarde. I also have the exact same speed stat as last time. With this, I will be outspeeding an Adamant Zygarde. I do not see any reason for him to be running any Zygarde that's not Adamant, or at least I don't see him, or at least a Zygarde that has a speed boosting nature. I don't see why he would want to do that, so I should outspeed with Tentacruel and get some good damage off against him before he can do anything nasty to me. Next up, we have this Hippowdon. This is a dedicated Stealth Rocks lead Hippowdon. I am leading with this 100% of the time, no matter what I see on his team. And I'm staying in against everything except for the Tornadus. So the Tornadus the first time was very offensive, and it had Hurricane, Heat Wave. We also saw Tailwind, and I believe that his last move was Grass Knot. I cannot be certain of that. But if it is Grass Knot and he reveals that against my Hippowdon lead, that is going to do a ton of damage to me. I cannot stay in against that. I will have to switch out into my Zeraora basically right away and try to get rocks up with Hippowdon a little bit later on in the game. As for everything else, I feel safe staying in against, and the reason I have Citrus Berry is because even if he leads with his Mega Venusaur, I can stay in against him. And if he goes for a Giga Drain, it will probably bring me below 50%. But my Citrus Berry will heal me up back to a range where I can still be a decent switch in to his Zygarde later on in the game. I remember now I also had Toxic on this Hippowdon the first time, but I got rid of it for Whirlwind. Because if I'm letting this Hippowdon take damage from something else on his team, the Zygarde could potentially become a little bit more of a threat. Hippowdon would not have as easy of a time checking that. So if he gets behind a sub, then I will probably want to Whirlwind him out because he could be training his Zygarde to not have his sub broken by an Earthquake from my Hippowdon. Next up, we have this Zeraora, which is Assault Vest this time, so we're going to be switching this into a lot more special hits more often, mainly from the Tornadus. The Tornadus was a huge threat for us last time. We had less speed on Zeraora the first time because we were creeping his assumed Weavile speed creep, but this time I am guaranteeing outspeeding Weavile. And because we have more bulk on this set thanks to the Assault Vest. We have Hidden Power Ice this time to actually hit the Zygarde. The first time, all that we planned to do against the Zygarde was eat a hit from it thanks to our Sugar Berry and get a Toxic off against him. But this time we are just making sure that we have enough Mons that can hit him with ice coverage. So I have ice moves on, I have super effective moves for Zygarde on 4 of my 6 Pokemon. The only move that's the same on this Zeraora set is Drain Punch, and that is for the Weavile. Even with minus attack nature and no investment, we still will be KOing that Weavile. Discharge is my electric type move of choice. The first time I had Volt Switch to pivot out against if I had Zeraora in against Tornadus and he brought in Venusaur, I could get momentum against the Venusaur. However, this time I have Discharge because if I can get a Paralysis off against the Venusaur, then Celesteela can always set up a substitute against it without him being able to Elite Seed me. And the reason I have Fake Out is because if there comes a point late in the game where I have Zeraora in against Tornadus and he wants to sack his Tornadus, he can get a Prankster Tailwind off and bring in something like the Weavile or the Zygarde to outspeed my entire team and do lots of damage to me. So I have Fake Out to be able to stall out turns of the Tailwind and potentially get my Zeraora back into a position where I can outspeed his offensive threats, do damage to them, do damage to the Zygarde with Hidden Power Ice, do damage to the Weavile with Drain Punch. Also, if Tornadus is weakened enough, like down at like 15% or something, to where a Fake Out actually might be able to knock him out, then that could also be very useful. That would prevent him from getting the Tailwind up in the first place. The last returning Mon that we're going to go over is the Celesteela. This is actually not that different moveset-wise. The only change is that instead of Protect, I have a Fly move, so I can actually hit his Mega Venusaur. That was the big issue the first time, is I put Protect instead of something like Air Slash, and that really cost me late in the game because he was able to whittle down my Celesteela enough to where I couldn't keep the sub up after his Venusaur went down. So the first time also he did not bring Mimikyu to the game, and I think he was just mainly super scared of Celesteela, and that he probably thought that it just didn't have a good matchup because Celesteela would always be there to check it. But so the first time I was a lot more defensive to take on his Mimikyu. This time I'm a lot more offensive, kind of banking on the fact that he won't bring Mimikyu again. If he does bring Mimikyu, then I might have to I might have to play Celesteela a lot more carefully and keep it healthier, not allow it to get as whittled down by his Mega Venusaur. But I can still potentially set up a substitute against his Venusaur and knock off Will to if he's not attack invested like I think he was the last time, then 2 knockoffs would not be able to break the sub. If he has something like Hidden Power Fire or something, then he should be able to break my sub. In that case, I will probably just pop off the Flying Z against him right away and try to do a massive amount of damage to him. I'm hoping that this Celesteela's longevity is not severely hindered by the fact that it doesn't have leftovers this week, but I wanted to try the Flying Z because once he sees if I go for a substitute, then I could be a very similar set as the last time. Even though he won't see leftovers proc, I think he might not necessarily assume Flying EMZ. Who knows? We'll see. Hopefully I can blow the Z move into something that can't easily recover the damage off, like the Klefki, which would resist and would probably just put him closer into range where he can heal back up with his 50% berry or something. Or the Porygon 2, which just hits it neutrally and it can recover off that damage very easily. Anything else though, the Zygarde, Tornadus, Mega Venusaur especially, anything else though that I can get the Flying EMZ off against would be fantastic. Last but not least, we have the only new addition to our team, and that is a Choice Scarf Hydreigon. The first time I brought Wigglytuff because I wanted a Cleric and I wanted to switch into Weavile. Those are two things that I now realize I do not need in this game. Weavile is very pressured to come in, especially if I get rocks up. There is not a ton of things that he can just switch in Weavile against freely, and he doesn't have a ton of sources of momentum to get Weavile in as easily. So Weavile is pretty much only coming in for him on a free switch, like after something dies. And it's going to take rocks damage, and then if something on my team dies, that's okay. I bring in Zeraora, and if he gets down to 50% after taking rocks, then my U-turn will actually knock him out. Flamethrower has a chance to knock him out after he comes in on rocks once. I could have ran Fire Blast to guarantee a KO, but then I also have a 15% chance of missing. I don't really want to mess with that. If he were to switch in the Klefki, I can get super effective damage off against that, and if I predict that to come in correctly, I can potentially stay in to get a 2-hit KO against him because he cannot Thunder Wave me. He cannot get the Prankster Thunder Wave off against my Hydreigon because it is a Dark type. Know that I said that he doesn't have any reason to run max speed boosting nature Zygarde, but I had to run a timid Hydreigon with enough speed to guarantee outspeed max speed Zygarde just in case, because if I didn't do that and he, for whatever reason, he was max speed Zygarde +1 after a Dragon Dance, I would hate myself forever. That I would just regret not just running max speed Hydreigon so much. So that's going to be the team, and I'm praying that we can get the revenge that I think we deserve after the way we lost the first game, and praying that I can advance to my second ever finals match and hopefully actually win the finals match this time. So we'll see you right back with the battle. We are back with the battle, and looking at Storm's team, I see a lot of the same things. But I do see a Zebstrika, which is different, and it looks to be in the place of Porygon 2, which surprised me a lot. I'm not really sure what went into the decision to bring Zebstrika here. I just feel like it's a bad mon in general and doesn't really help him. I feel like Porygon 2 would have given him a lot more options and would have been harder for my team to deal with. Zebstrika, sure, it pressures Celesteela and Tentacruel to an extent as well, but I have a Hippowdon and an AV0 Aura to switch into it. Hydreigon can switch into the majority of its hits too, so I'm not sure I agree with the change on his end. Maybe he felt like Porygon 2 made him a little bit too weak to Mega Gallade, but he can still catch me on a switch with a Shadow Ball or something and then switch out into something that doesn't allow him or allow Gallade to recover too much HP or something. So I don't know, maybe that was the reason behind him not bringing it, but I don't know. If he had brought Porygon 2, he could have surely gotten away with trying to status my Gallade, like maybe with the Paralysis. The Zebstrika, along with the Zygarde, are both of his Z-Mons. He brought a Z-move on the Zygarde in the first game, but we will have to be cautious of a potential Z-move on the Zebstrika in this game. So I don't really know what to expect from the Zebstrika. Venusaur, Tornadus, Weavile, I expect to do very similar things as the first game. Klefki could potentially be a little bit different. He may not go the Spikes route because Tentacruel can spin them away rather easily. And Zygarde could be a number of different things. I don't really know what to expect this time. All that being said, I have a game plan. I have a dedicated lead, and that is my Hippowdon. I'm going to get Rocks up right away. Doesn't matter to me what he wants to lead with, although the Torn might scare me out. But he is going to lead with the Venusaur, so that's fine with me. He can Giga Drain me, and I should be able to eat my Citrus Berry and end this exchange at a reasonable amount of HP, and then be able to switch out. So I will have to be careful, however, for a potential defog on the Tornadus or the Klefki. But if Torn is going for defog, then it's exerting a lot less offensive pressure with me, and I should be okay with that. So he does go straight for the Giga Drain, and I'm going to eat my Citrus Berry, heal back up to around 70%, and now I'm going to switch out into my Celesteela. I had basically had two options here, Celesteela or the Gallade, but Celesteela was the more appropriate choice for me because I did not want my Gallade taking the Sandstorm chip. And so that's the beauty of having Celesteela in here in this situation, is pretty much everything on his team, except for this Klefki, is going to be worn down by the Sandstorm. But I actually predict his Venusaur to switch out right here and go for a Leech Seed rather than going for a substitute, because the thought did cross my mind that he could be a Sap Sipper Zebstrika, and in that case, I did not want to basically waste a substitute's worth of HP on my Celesteela if I wasn't going to recover any of it. If he was Sap Sipper Celesteela, if he was Sap Sipper Zebstrika and went into that, then I wanted to know as soon as possible. So this turn, I switch out, take the opportunity to recover a little bit of HP on my Klefki HP on my Hippowdon, as he sets up a layer of spikes, and then he goes for a Reflect rather than setting up another layer of spikes as I pull a double into my Tentacruel. Not honestly sure why I made that switch. I probably could have just stayed in with Hippowdon and clicked Earthquake. But the fact that he has Reflect up now, we're going to have to be careful to count the number of turns that the Reflect is on his side of the field, because the first time he was a 50% berry. So there's a good chance that he may only have 5 turns of Reflect or 8 turns, I'm not totally sure. So as I spin away his Spike, he makes a very aggressive switch into the Zygarde. And because he is behind a Reflect, I am hesitant to pull the switch into my Hippowdon to try and wall him out. I'm not... I feel like the Zygarde was too big of a threat behind a Reflect for Hippowdon to want to deal with it. So instead, I just get a big chunk of damage off against him with the Ice Beam from my Tentacruel and sack it off to 1,000 arrows. Looking back, I probably could have still taken the Zygarde on relatively well with Hippowdon. If it got too scary, I always had Whirlwind to phase it out into something else, and then something maybe taking more rocks damage than it maybe would like. But as my Tentacle goes down, Gallade is going to come in, and I have to click Ice Punch because Reflect is still up. I want to ensure that I get a KO on the Zygarde if he's going to stay in. But he does switch into the Klefki, and I know that he brought this in to get up the rest of his spikes. So I'm going to stay in with my Gallade, not fearing a Thunder Wave, not fearing a super effective Fairy type move from him. I want to make sure that I get rid of this Klefki, as he is undeniably going to get all of his layers of spikes up, and I don't want to also allow him to get a Reflect back up for 8 more turns. That would be really, really annoying for me to deal with. So the first turn I clicked Knock Off just in case he was 50% berry, because at that point I wasn't sure if the Reflect was going to be lasting for 5 turns or 8 turns. But it turns out that he was Light Clay, so going for Knock Off there probably wasn't necessary, although even with the Reflect up, I don't think Drain Punch was a 2-hit KO anyway, so the extra chip damage from Knockoff probably helped. He goes into Tornadus to revenge me, and I was switching in my Hippowdon to sack it off here, but he misses his Hurricane, and this is massive. This means I can preserve my Hippowdon at a much higher amount of HP than I was expecting. In fact, I was expecting my Hippowdon to go down to 2 attacks from my Tornadus. To his Tornadus. I was very cautious of switching in my Zeraora in that situation because he has the spikes up. I would have been taking 25% plus any damage that he did to me with the Torn attack, provided that it had hit. So from this point, Zeraora and the Gallade and the Hippowdon are going to have to be very careful about switching into spikes, but thankfully, Celesteela and Hydreigon do not take any damage from spikes at all. So, as the Venusaur came in there, I knew that he was not going to be clicking Giga Drain on that turn. I knew that he was going to try to predict me to switch out into something, whether it be the Gallade or the Celesteela. But it looked like he was predicting Celesteela because he went hard Zygarde. I probably should have gone for Earthquake to knock out the Zygarde instead of click Whirlwind, but Whirlwind was, I think, a safer play. It would have been better against whatever he wanted to go into, like maybe he switched into Torn, and then I would have, of course, the only thing I can do to his Torn is click Earthquake. But as Sandstorm ends, I'm going to now pull the switch into Celesteela as he goes for Giga Drain. He's going to go for Synthesis, and this is the perfect opportunity for me to blow my Flyinium Z against Storm's team. Once this Venusaur is gone, Zeraora is going to go in against his team. No matter whether he was staying in or switching out, if he switched out, Venusaur was going to be at an extremely low amount of HP, and because the Klefki is gone, he no longer has any resistance to the Flyinium Z, so I was basically guaranteed a kill right here by clicking my Z move. So I knock out the Venusaur, and I'm going to get the attack boost, and at this point, nothing that he can bring in is going to be able to OHKO my Celesteela. Even, I don't think Zebstrika, well, Zebstrika, if he had Gigavolt Havoc or a super effective Z move, would probably be able to kill me. But he does go into the Zygarde. It's not, this hit is actually not super effective against Celesteela yet because I still have my, I'm not under the Smackdown effect yet, so I can take what appears to be a Banded 1,000 Arrows and knock out the Zygarde with a +1 Heavy Slam. And now the Tornadus is going to be the mod that he brings in to revenge kill me with the Heat Wave. I do not need my Celesteela anymore at this point. It came in, picked up 2 kills, it did its job. When Celesteela goes down now, at this point I can just bring in Zeraora, and it matches up extremely well against what he's got left. It is going to take a little bit of spikes damage, however. So I do not go for the Electro-type move here. I figured I had nothing to lose by going for a Fake Out. I wasn't positive that Hidden Power Ice would be able to kill the Tornadus from that range because I am very minimally invested in my attacking stats. So I figured I had nothing to lose by clicking Fake Out there. If he went into Zebstrika, I'd get a little bit of chip on that. And you see he goes for what appears to be Hidden Power Ice, I guess. Maybe hoping that I would switch in either my Hydreigon or my Hippowdon. but there's no reason for me to when I can click Drain Punch twice and actually end this exchange at a higher amount of HP than when I came in on the spikes damage and the Zebstrika goes down. So, can you believe that was a Choice Specs Zebstrika and it just did absolutely no damage to my Zeraora? So this Weavile comes in now, and he is Scarfed Icicle Crash, but unlike the first game, he is not going to flinch me with this Icicle Crash and is going to go down to that Drain Punch. Even if he had flinched me, I would still felt like I was in a good position. I could have switched out Preserve Zeraora for his Tornadus. I had Gallade at full HP in the back. It would have, yes, it would have come in on spikes, but I guarantee could not be flinched by a hit from his Weavile because I have Inner Focus, and I would have been able to knock him out with a Drain Punch. If he switched out into the Torn, he would have been taking Rocks damage. Drain Punch should have been enough to knock him out at that point. So basically, as soon as I got rid of that Mega Venusaur, I had a guaranteed win. There was no way I could have screwed that up. And we are going to pick up another 4-0 win in the playoffs and advance to the finals of Season 6 of the IBL. GG to Storm. His links will be in the description as always, and I'm just so thankful that we got the better of him when it mattered most. And perhaps that Week 11 loss against him that cost us the playoff bye that we wanted was a blessing in disguise, because it allowed me to build well, not really build, but just improve upon my build that I thought was very solid in the first place, but in fact, in this game, all of my sets were better. Hippowdon coming in and making sure that with the Citrus Berry, it could be at a high amount of HP and still be able to get rocks up. Great set. Celesteela, great set the first time, but without a flying move, it just wasn't able to break through his team like I needed it to. And once it was able to get rid of Venusaur, it just completely opened the door up for Zeraora, which had coverage for everything on his team, especially after I managed to weaken that Zygarde with my Tentacruel's Ice Beam. Hydreigon didn't hit the field, but again, I felt like that was a much better set than the Wigglytuff set that I had brought before. I realized that the purpose that I thought I needed Wigglytuff for, I didn't after all, and bringing Hydreigon, I just felt made this team a lot better. The spikes being up on my side of the field were an issue, and I probably didn't necessarily need to sacrifice my Tentacruel and make it easy for him to get all of his layers of spikes up. But the amount of damage on Zygarde basically allowed me to kill him with anything else on my team, and that made switching around his team a lot less necessary, so the fact that he got spikes up wasn't really the end of the world. I could kind of just out-offense him and not have to switch around too much with my team, and the fact that Celesteela and my Choice Scarfed Hydreigon didn't take any damage from the spikes helped a lot as well. The Hurricane miss against Hippowdon was also very significant because I was not counting on Hippowdon coming out of that exchange alive, but it actually turned the tide of the match completely because he was really forced into a position where he had to make a play with that Venusaur. If he let Celesteela get in too easily in that position, I was going to be able to pop my Flying Z. I was going to be able to get a kill against pretty much anything. Zebstrika would have taken a crap ton of damage because it is not a very strong Pokemon, not a very good Pokemon. And you know, once that Venusaur was gone, it was just Zeraora going in. So back-to-back 4-0 wins, and the Mons that picked up kills in this game were completely different from the Mons that picked up kills in the round 1 playoffs game. So our whole roster is really coming through when it matters most in playoffs. Every Mon on the team is contributing. I'm super excited to be in my second finals in a row. Previously, I had never made finals ever in my Draft League career, and to be in back-to-back finals is just amazing, and hopefully this time we can actually come out with the win in the finals and get our first championship. Our finals opponent will be the winner of the other semifinal between Clutch Sometimes and Coanx. Not going to spoil the result, if either of them decide to upload, then go ahead and you can see the result of their game. But yeah, I'm very excited for this finals match. So be sure to like this video, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed. Also, you may want to subscribe to the channel to keep up with other content we have coming up. Tomorrow will be the third episode of our Let's Play Luigi's Mansion series, and Thursdays we also have live commentated Reject Battle Royale matches going up. So make sure to subscribe to make sure that you don't miss any content that we have. We have 4 videos a week now, which is awesome. So I hope you all enjoyed, and we'll see you next week for the finals.